Emotional eating is something that we all do to a point, and it is a valid coping strategy in many ways. Any highly processed food is not resembling its natural form, so therefore in that essence it's not going to be as nourishing for you as something that is a whole food. Actually, what you realise when you sit with an emotion is that, you know, these things come and go.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Moran podcast. I'm really excited about our special guest today. She is an intuitive nutrition coach that is actually going to help us fall more in love with our bodies and the relationship that we have with food. Now, I'm really grateful and I'm really excited that Sammy has turned up and said that she will come and be a guest on our podcast, because I actually had a session with her that I feel like absolutely changed my relationship with my sweet tooth and how I was eating. So we'll just get straight into it. Sammy, thank you so much for coming and being a guest on the podcast.
My absolute pleasure.
How you doing?
For inviting me. Yeah, I'm really, really good, thank you. Yeah.
Amazing. So this is the place where we have a conscious conversation over a coconut.
Sounds perfect. That's very Kopanyang.
Very Kopanyang. And we're barefoot as well, by the way.
Exactly, yeah.
So in this podcast, I basically want to get out of you as much information as I can about intuitive eating and falling in love with our food and falling in love with our bodies. But there is a great quote that you shared with me. It's, "Let food be thy medicine and thy medicine be the food." What does that actually mean?
So it basically means that through the way that we nourish our bodies, through the food that we're eating, we can heal ourselves, and that it's really, in my opinion, should be the first thing that we're doing to actually look at getting into a healthier place in our bodies. And I think this, these days we have this kind of idea that we need medication to be healthy. You know, we need to take pharmaceutical drugs to do that. But actually, the majority of the diseases that are around are caused by diet. Caused by poor dietary choices. And so the way that we can change our consumption of different types of nutrients can heal us and can take us to a place of health that we can then maintain through our lives.
Yeah, amazing. So somebody said something to me amazing years ago. It's like, you don't really need to go to the doctors when you're sick. He said you should go to the doctors for a checkup like once every couple of years. And what he was trying to say is, like, you make yourself super healthy with your lifestyle, like food, sleep, and moving your body. What kind of foods are we talking about then? Obviously, like fat, greasy, sugary foods. They're the kind of like the foods that are going to create illnesses and diseases. So what is nutrition? What is healthy food for people that don't have a clue? They're right at the beginning.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I would always suggest people to keep having the foundation of their diet as a plant-based diet. I'm not saying that you need to become vegan or cut out animal products, but the majority of your diet should be based on fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, whole grains, things like nuts and seeds, and that should provide about 80% of your intake of nutrition. And then all the other things like, you know, dairy products, cheese, milk, eggs, meat, fish, you know, those are choices that you can make if you want to consume those or not. I would always say that highly processed or ultra processed foods, as they're also called, should be consumed very occasionally. I'm not saying to never ever consume a chocolate bar or never consume a bag of crisps, because I know that sometimes, you know, there is occasions when that's okay.
You're talking about me with a chocolate bar and a bag of crisps, didn't you? That was our conversation before.
Not at all, Brett, not at all.
So you're saying in moderation, in a way?
Yeah, in moderation, and also in tune with your body. So as well as being a nutritionist, I'm also an intuitive eating coach. So what that means is that I help people to really tune into their body's signals. So over many years of being exposed to diet industry, a lot of people have lost touch with hunger, what hunger feels like, and how to then also reach a point of satisfaction when they've eaten. And then to stop eating as well. Yeah. So what I help people to do is to learn to listen to those signals of the body and then trust them. And so that takes time, you know, it's a process that you go through.
Doesn't happen overnight.
No, exactly. And we've also been brainwashed a lot of the time, you know, by diet culture to think a certain way about, you know, we should be eating at a certain time of day. You know, we're looking for these external signals around us rather than trusting our own body to tell us when to eat, what to eat. And, you know, a lot of people say to me, isn't intuitive eating just like eating what you want when you want? And there is an element of that, but it's also very much tuning into how food feels in your body. So we've all done it. We've all felt, maybe unhappy or like emotional about something, and we turn to food for support. We might eat a tub of ice cream, or we get a bag of crisps or something, and we sit there and we binge on that. And, that doesn't feel good in your body afterwards. It might have a satisfaction in the moment. It gives you a distraction, maybe from the emotion that you're feeling and the difficulty that is coming up with that. But it doesn't really make you feel good in the long term. So if you eat a lot of ice cream, for example, maybe your stomach you feel a bit sick afterwards. Maybe the next day you notice that you get a few spots on your skin. Those are the kind of things that I help people to notice. And I also encourage people to journal after they've eaten different types of foods as well, because that really helps them to understand how they feel in their body and maybe helps them to be a bit more selective next time. So it's really a process of unlearning the kind of the way we've been programmed through society, really, and diet culture, and then tuning into our body, trusting it, and then relearning what our body actually wants.
I love it. I've got so many questions just from that.
Okay, cool.
But to kind of sum that up, and forgive me for making it too simple, we're talking about awareness and kind of waking up.
Yeah.
Because like you say, everybody knows that we're looking at all these images of people with these bodies, and then people are comparing themselves to what somebody else looks like. So maybe they'll starve themselves or feel like there's something wrong with their body. Or, these adverts that are on TV, I don't know, Skittles or chocolate bars, like brainwashing children to want. And I see the little kids get so excited when they see like a Coca-Cola van go past. I saw it literally in Thailand. A little girl was waving at a Coca-Cola van because the adverts on TV have brainwashed her to think it's good, but we all know that's just full of sugar and crap. And in the long term, so like that to me is like awareness is the intuitive part. So start to connect. If I'm honest, I went out for a curry last night, a chana masala, right? And there's nothing wrong with it, but I haven't had a curry for months because I know that when I eat white rice, I feel like I've got a food hangover. And it's taken me years to work that out. But that for me is awareness.
Yeah.
It's like, I become aware. Like I stay up late, I'm going to feel tired the next day. I drink alcohol, I do crazy things. If I eat certain food, I literally feel a bit hungover.
Yeah.
So for me, that's awareness. But then the second bit, which I love, is kind of waking up. It's like I said, everybody knows that there's some kind of marketing going on that wants you to consume and buy stuff, which if we're honest, it isn't really healthy for you long term.
No, exactly.
So yeah. Okay, so I actually spoke to you maybe a month ago or something like that, because if I'm honest, I learned two new things from Sammy. Number one, I didn't really know what emotional eating was. I mean, I've heard of it, but as you said something before we started the podcast, it's not until theory's good, but it's not until you actually practice it or feel it. So I'd heard of emotional eating, and then I also knew I had a very sweet tooth. And so I am going to the shops late at night, getting myself a vegan bar of chocolate and a vegan packet of crisps. And you said to me, it doesn't matter if it's vegan, Brett. It's like a story I was telling myself.
Yeah.
But if I'm very honest, I never had the awareness until a few months ago that I was eating that because I was feeling lonely at nighttime. And I'm a dude that's just so positive, life is amazing, and I'm so on my path. But at nighttime, there was this, I didn't even know I was doing it. But I was going out, eating a packet of crisps, and then going back to the shop to get more chocolate. Can you explain why do we eat emotionally? And like, what was I doing to myself, and what are millions of other people doing to themselves?
Yeah, so emotional eating is something that we all do to a point, and it is a valid coping strategy in many ways. So, when we're babies, we are pacified by our mothers. They put like a dummy or a nipple or a bottle in our mouths when we're crying, because they don't know if we're hungry or not, because, all we can do is cry. So we, very early on, we associate comfort with something going into the mouth. And then as we get older, quite often our parents will, if we're making a fuss, we're like, oh, I'm hungry, they'll just give us something and we put it on our mouths and we feel this comfort. And so we develop an association with, quite often with happiness and food as well through things like celebrations. So, birthday party, you associate it with being allowed all this food that you're not normally allowed. And so, what it's like when you're told not to do something, you want to do it more. And so we then associate, this sort of highly processed foods like, chocolates and crisps and sweets as being like naughty and like, that's a treat and that's a special thing. And all the other food, it becomes like boring in a way. And so over our lifetime, we associate food with pleasure, we associate it with comfort. And so quite often it becomes, for some people, their only coping strategy for dealing with difficult emotions. And that's when it becomes an issue. I love eating cake actually every week I love eating cake, but, particularly on my birthday or somebody else's birthday, it's a thing that we all do to celebrate. But if it was the only thing I was doing when I was feeling sad or lonely or depressed to cope, then that's when it becomes an issue. And so what I help people to do is I always sort of suggest that they find 5 different strategies that they can use to, in that moment when they're feeling that emotion, instead of just trying to distract yourself by eating, because eating kind of pushes the emotion down as well, like energetically, it kind of keeps it in the body. And, actually it's better to let it come up, and cry or laugh or whatever it is that you're feeling. And it's hard to do that. And so instead of, eating, I say to people, right, well, what other things do you enjoy to do that you could do in that moment that is going to help you to get you out of that situation, of that feeling of difficulty or whatever it is? And I call it their toolbox. So people then have this toolbox of 5 things they can call on when they know they're going to emotionally eat. Most people are aware of it. And it's something that they can use instead.
This is what you actually did with me. You asked me what
it is,
which was great. It was amazing, and I think it's a really great technique. So I've got a question, Lo, to challenge that. Is that not still a bit of an avoidance? Are you still not avoiding the emotion that comes up? Because wouldn't it be better maybe to face what comes up and then still have those strategies as well?
Yeah.
Or are you saying just when it comes up, go straight to one of the toolbox tools?
Yeah.
Because would you still sort of, because this is my theory, right? I don't think it matters whether it's food, drugs, sex, gambling, shopping online. There's some kind of hole in the soul that we're constantly trying to do to fulfill something. And I've kind of looked at a lot of areas of my life, but I never really looked at the food. I never knew the food was there. So that's obviously why I spoke to you and I got vulnerable and asked you questions, because I've never spoken about this stuff before.
Yeah.
But while I was doing that, I was also sitting there asking that feeling, whatever it was, to come up. Yeah. And that for me was really healing. And it's been very healing in all the other habits or addictions that I've kind of, understood. But I loved then the toolbox. Like, why don't I just play my handpan at 8 o'clock at night instead of getting a bar of chocolate? Yeah. So my question is, if we just go to the toolbox, is it an avoidance, or would you say do a bit of both?
I would always say that for clients that I work with, that the toolbox is the first thing that I help them with, because a lot of clients that I see don't necessarily have that capacity to be able to sit with the feeling straight away.
True, yeah.
And so through the sessions that I do with them, I help to train them in a bit of meditation to actually sit with it and question themselves about what is coming up, why it's coming up. And I also help them to understand where the connection with food has come from. So why, when they feel lonely or sadness, why do they reach for a biscuit? What does that biscuit give them that they're trying to get? And
what kind of biscuit is it, though?
So any biscuit,
are we talking chocolate biscuits?
Could be anything.
Okay.
That was just an example.
I'm just getting the biscuits in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, chocolate digestive.
Okay, right,
hobnob. That's the best one.
Antonio, can you go and get some biscuits quick? Camera guy's gone to the shop.
Make sure they're vegan, though.
That's how I justify everything. It's vegan.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's another thing that I was going to mention, is that there is this misconception that if something is labelled as being vegan, it's healthy automatically, and that's really not the case. In fact,
because it could be processed, right?
Well, absolutely. Any highly processed food is not resembling its natural form. So therefore, in that essence, it's not going to be as nourishing for you as something that is a whole food.
Yeah.
And so, that's definitely a message that I would like to share, is just be careful and just check the packaging. I mean, if it's in packaging in the first place, that tells you that it's a highly processed food. Yeah. Really.
We're so blessed here, right? We can just eat fresh fruit every day. Yeah. But it's crazy that the mind will still want to go off and buy a bar of chocolate from the shops.
Yeah.
But I butted in and being a bit funny.
It's okay,
and you was talking about something before when we were talking about biscuits, and I asked what biscuits it was. What was the point?
Yeah, so you were asking me if that's a strategy of avoidance. Yeah. So it's one way of switching your behavior patterns in your brain from associating associating loneliness with eating to associating loneliness with doing something else, which will take you into a different headspace.
Nice, I like that.
And then you've got this, when you can learn to do that, because awareness, like you said at the beginning, is the first thing, isn't it? So once you've got that awareness of, right, I'm going to emotionally eat, but I'm not going to do that, I'm going to choose something different, then you can start to work on the looking inwards and the actual awareness and sort of questioning where that emotion is coming from, what it is and why it's there, and sitting with it rather than avoiding it, rather than distracting yourself from it, and actually what you realize when you sit with an emotion is that, and you'll know this through doing like Vipassana meditation, is that, these things come and go. They're not a permanent fixture. So an emotion of loneliness can come in and you sit with it and you feel it, and then it passes and it goes away again. And then you realize that actually that emotion is impermanent and you don't have to attach to that. You don't have to identify with that emotion.
Yeah,
that's a longer kind of process.
It's pretty beautiful. It's so with our message, because on our teacher training, our meditation teacher training course, I say to people, invite whatever it is, a sadness, an anger, an anxiety, depression, invite it in for a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, I want to get to know you.
Yeah.
Because like we're constantly avoiding it and we're trying to and in the long run, you can't run away from it. And when you invite in, even though that's so scary that you bring it in and you feel it, I think over time, in the end, it just disappears.
Exactly.
It's like, when it does come in, it's like you're having a cup of tea with a friend and it might be a bit annoying and you can't wait for him to leave, but he's come in, and then he put his shoes on and then he'll leave.
Yeah, it's like that
so
Rumi phrase, isn't it? That Rumi quote, which says like, entertain them all, because each has been sent to you as a guide.
Nice.
And I love that as well, because that's about all those emotions that we are kind of trained into thinking are kind of, negative and we shouldn't be feeling them, but they're all valid. And, you don't understand what happiness is without sadness. You don't know what fear is without like joy, all these things kind of, and it's the duality of everything is really important.
Well, bring it back to me because it's my podcast.
Sorry, Brett. Let's talk about you for a minute.
I want to bring it back to Brett. When I sat in my bedroom on the bed and I felt that loneliness, all jokes aside, it was very, I don't want to say horrible, or I don't want to label it negative, but it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I invited him for a cup of tea and I really, really sat with it. But I wouldn't know what it feels like to feel so connected and so one and loving with everyone if I didn't do that. Same with all of the shadows that I've had, all of the darkness. They're actually your gift. Yeah. They're actually your gift. And whoever put them there, society, parents, government, it doesn't matter. If we take full responsibility for what's going on the inside, and this is what I'm getting from you, like this is what intuitive nutrition coaching is. It's a tongue tie for me. It's awareness. It's like becoming aware of that. Maybe you were programmed to eat like that, but it doesn't mean that's going to determine your destiny. You can change that. You can. With the awareness, which I absolutely love. Yeah. I've also got an apology to make to you as well. Oh, okay. Because when we did this coaching call, we had a session, right? And if anybody wants to do a session, I highly recommend it. We'll put all Sammy's details underneath the video. We'll share all your details after. But for me, it was life-changing. And I'm getting goosebumps. I truly mean that. Yeah.
It's lovely. Thank you.
No, because I've never really spoke about food and kind of like, image about stuff with people. I just got on with it because I've got a very like big ego and I just go with it, right? And so the first thing that you said to me is like, put a bit of peanut butter in your smoothie because of your sweet tooth at nighttime. That's maybe why you're going to the shops and getting chocolate. I literally put peanut butter in my smoothie and my sweet tooth almost disappeared overnight. And for me, that was like, wow. Yeah. It is something that I'd struggled with for years. And I've known that I'd love a bit of cake after dinner and I go to the shops and I kind of laugh it off and I joke about it. But I also know that I've got a very addictive personality. So where one person might just have one bar or one bar, one little piece, they'll lick it. I'll have like 5 bars of chocolate or 5 packets of crisps. It's the same with drugs and alcohol, whatever it is, I've got that. But when you told me to put peanut butter in there, like my sweet tooth almost like disappeared instantly. But I remember saying to you, but Sammy, I need to give up chocolate. I can't eat chocolate because like I can't intuitively smoke crack. Remember I said that? Like, if you said to me, you can intuitively take drugs, I'd be like, oh, great. But I know that I couldn't intuitively take drugs or take alcohol. So I did have this mindset, like I need to give it up. And if I'm honest, you was right. I'm going to admit I was completely wrong. It felt too much pressure on me. Yeah. And in this last week, I've been hanging out with my friend who's come over to visit. I've had a bit of chocolate here and there, and I've had a few things like the curry last night, which I normally wouldn't eat. But the voice in my head, thanks to you, is like, it's okay. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not like this big thing. Whereas before, the story in my head was so bad, so against me, that actually that made it worse than actually eating it. So a kind of an apology, a way of saying sorry, but also mainly thank you as well, because you've let the voice go out of my head. And is that what intuitive eating nutrition is all about?
Yeah.
It's not beating yourself up, basically.
Yeah.
Because it's okay to have a bit of chocolate here and there or go out for a curry. Guys, I know you're enjoying the video, but I've got a quick question for you. Are you okay with that monkey mind being a monkey? We've all got this voice inside the head, or voices filled with self-doubt, criticism, judgment. But most people don't understand how important it is to master that monkey mind. So look, if you've got a monkey mind or a voice that is just busy inside your head and it never seems to shut up, I know exactly how you feel. And thankfully, I found meditation about 20 years ago. And so, I have an amazing opportunity for you. It's the Bodhi Meditation Teacher Training Program. This 10-week program is designed to share with you 8 Bodhi meditations. And the amazing thing about these meditations is that they are scientifically proven to help you reduce stress, reduce anxiety, uplift your mood, boost your energy. In other words, create that kind of lifestyle, that energy and that health and that happiness that most people crave. Over the course of 10 weeks, I'm going to be your meditation coach. And at the end of this course, you're going to become a certified Bodhi meditation teacher. That means that you can coach people one-to-one, you can work from anywhere in the world, build online courses, or even teach meditation at yoga retreats or anywhere you decide. So click that link below and together will open up your heart so that you wake up feeling positive and literally this buzz for life. The link is below. Now you can get back to your video. Have an amazing day.
Yeah, exactly. And we have the inner food critic, the food police, the internal food police, Brilliant. I call them.
I've been trying to get away from the police for years.
Yeah, well, there you go. And now hopefully you have.
Food police.
Yeah, and this is like an internal dialogue that we have with ourselves around food. And not everybody has it, but, a lot of us have these sort of preconceived ideas about what's healthy and what's unhealthy. And in intuitive nutrition, we try to get away from these labels of food as well. This is a very dichotomous way of seeing things. It's either good or bad, it's either healthy or unhealthy. But actually, morally, food is just neutral. And so in intuitive nutrition, we try to see food as its kind of component parts. And that helps you to just see it as nutrition rather than as a good thing or a bad thing. And
it's really, sorry to bang, but it's just energy, right? Food is meant to give you energy for the rest of the day or for the week, and then you.
Yeah, I would say it's fuel. It's a fuel, and there's lots of different components to the food. Energy is one of the things that you get from it, and it will. Going back to what you were saying, it's this idea of when you've eaten something, beating yourself up about it and the guilt that you feel around food, that's what I help people to remove. Because, like you said, you went out and you were able to eat something that you wouldn't normally eat, and you weren't beating yourself up about it. You might not have felt very good in your body afterwards, but, that probably just means that you might not eat white rice next time. You might choose a whole wheat naan bread or a whole wheat chapati instead.
Now thinking about it.
Yeah, but, there's other ways you can still go out for a curry. And, curries are, good for you. They're full of, polyphenols in the spices, and it's a vegetarian place, isn't it? So they have vegan options there, and if you have chickpeas, it's good protein and fiber and things. So there's loads of really good nutrition in a curry. I wouldn't say it's something that you want to be eating every single day, obviously, or every single week even, but occasionally it's fine. And that's why this idea of intuitive nutrition is much more, you gain freedom because you're no longer beating yourself up, you're no longer feeling guilty about what you're eating, but you're really just listening to your body, and you have this awareness of how food makes you feel, and that informs your choices. And so when you live in that freedom of really knowing and nourishing your body and fueling your body, which is what food is about, then that's a really empowering place to be. And there are going to be occasions where we emotionally eat, there always will be. And again, it's about not beating yourself up for doing that, and feeling this terrible guilt the next day. And this is something that I lived with for many years. I had an eating disorder for many years, and one of the biggest issues of that is what you tell yourself. This food police kind of narrative in your mind that you shouldn't eat that, you should eat that, you need to run this far to cancel the calories out that you've just just consumed or whatever. And it's quietening down that voice in your mind that is where the true freedom is, really.
I love that.
True freedom is in the mind, isn't it?
I love that, because this is what this whole podcast is about, whether it's people that want to travel around the world, whether they want to make some money, whether they want to get, mentally and emotionally free. It's all about freedom. If anyone's listening, this whole podcast is about awakening and freedom. And I think food is so important when it comes to that, because you can be so strict on yourself and get so lost in it, or you can even be so yogi and so breatharian and kind of like, it's here for a reason, so enjoy some of the fruits and the food just as much. So I'm always about that kind of trying to get that balance and looking at it. So I want to get some tips off of you. For anybody that's listening, they're like, what on earth are they talking about? Intuitive eating, emotional eating, I have no idea. And we really want to make it super simple, and we'll give them some practical steps maybe that they can have a look at if anyone's listening and they're interested about, falling in love with food or their bodies and relationship. But you kind of touched very briefly on your story, and I just want to come back to that. You said you had an eating disorder, if you don't mind sort of sharing.
No, not at all.
How did you get to where you are today? And what kind of like not only propelled you to live in Thailand and take that leap of faith, but help you kind of wake up and look at food and nutrition?
Yeah, I guess really it kind of started when I got divorced in 2015, when I started going to therapy and I started really like delving into why I was doing certain things, like why I was using certain behaviors. I didn't really like actually tackle my eating disorder then, because I don't think I was ready. But that kind of started me on the process of the internal inquisition, basically. And so as I like decided to leave Wales, where I was living, I went traveling for a year, did a bit of an eat, pray, love year. That's what I call it.
Took your journal.
Yeah, I went to India.
And,
that was the first place I went. And I went to like Southeast Asia, basically. And it was the first time I actually came to Thailand as well. And I remember flying into Bangkok from Delhi and getting to Bangkok and thinking what a clean city it was in comparison to where I'd just come from. Right? Yeah, it was crazy. Amazing, but crazy as well. I lived in Bangkok for 3 years after that. I was a high school biology teacher, and I lived, it was one of my dreams. Had always been to like live abroad and work abroad and everything. And one of the reasons I actually became a teacher in the first place was that. So I finally was able to live that dream. And I think during my time in Bangkok, my relationship with food became much more polarized. Like I could really see what my behavior was like around food. And then COVID happened. Can
you give us an example of your behavior? Because what do you mean? Like you'd overeat and make yourself be sick? Or?
Yeah, well, not so much that really. It was more, my eating disorder more kind of manifested itself as obsessively exercising. It was very much, I've always been like an athlete. I was a swimmer when I was younger. And so exercise for me has always been like an outlet, I guess, as a stress reliever and a coping strategy. But it became like obsessive, like every day, like twice a day, I had to do various different things. And then I was very restrictive with my eating. So I actually became vegan in 2015. But like my initial reasons for that were the ethics of like the way that animals are treated. And, I didn't want to be part of that industry, but it kind of became apparent to me like later on that my real motivation behind that, I think, had been just because you can restrict a whole load of food. And that is always a question that I ask people who are vegan that I work with, is what their intention behind it is. Because it can be used by people with eating disorders to kind of mask over that.
It's a great point you say, because I meet a lot of people that are vegan for a few years, 5 years, or even there's been a few people on YouTube that have been vegan for 10 years and created a whole business around it, and then they just decide to go straight back. And I've always questioned, like, what is that then? Or people get in a relationship, and because the guy or the girl is vegan, the other person will become vegan for that relationship. And then when they break up, the other person goes straight back. And I'm glad you said that, because not for the reason of why you are saying it to your clients, but for me, it's like, I've been vegan for nearly 15 years now, and it was an overnight decision because of animals, and it was more of a moral, spiritual thing rather than the body. It's just like, I can't kill another living being, and if somebody else is doing it, I don't want to be part of that. And I think because of it is why it's stuck so long. And there's never been a craving around food. There's never been a relapse around a burger or anything like that. And so when people go vegan for the wrong reasons, not saying there's a right or wrong, but when they go through vegan for like those kind of reasons, what you're saying, I'm like, I don't know whether that's actually healthy as well. I think it's actually better to really sink into that and connect to that way. So I'm glad you kind of mentioned that, because there are we make these decisions, especially nowadays. Everything's like, it's like ice baths, yoga, vegan. It's like this whole trend of doing this stuff. Like, but is that really meant for you? Right? Maybe it's not so healthy. Maybe it is.
Yeah, it's kind of something people jump on the bandwagon and they
100%.
just want to be.
Yeah, now there's loads of people.
It's fashionable kind of.
It
thing.
is. It's fashion.
Yeah.
It's like, I think those things, like, don't go fashionable with those things.
Exactly.
For me, it's more of a way of life.
Yeah.
Like, this is who I'm going to be for the rest of my life.
Well, I think that's one of the misconceptions about veganism, is that it is a way of life.
Yeah.
Veganism isn't about food. That's one of the elements of
Yeah.
being a vegan. I actually did a vegan nutrition diploma before I did my master's in nutrition, just to see if it was what I wanted to do. And at the time I was vegan, and I really learned that actually it is a whole lifestyle, and it doesn't just impact your food, it impacts like everything that you choose. So I think, there's a plant-based diet, which is what many people follow. But yeah, going back to that, I think, just choosing to follow a diet based on a physical, like what your body is going to look like, is never going to be something that you're going to be able to stick to long term. So it's like any diet. So the intuitive eating principles, it's also described as the non-diet approach to nutrition.
The non-diet
approach, yeah. So it's, it really looks at all diets as being restrictive in some way, including veganism, but that is something that you always query with the client to find out what their intention behind it is. And I would say for you, your intention is a pure intention coming from a place of love, and that's a very different intention to coming from a place of fear, or fear over gaining weight, or fear over consuming foods,
or wanting
which
to
is
fit in,
yeah,
or being
exactly,
part of something.
Yeah, which is never. You're never going to be able to last with that forever.
Well, I go to the gym and there's some real buff guys in the gym. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm like, oh, he's dishy, right? they got the six pack and they're huge. And then I get to know them, they're friends, and and we've all got stuff. Like we're all going through stuff. We're all in this together. But what interests me is some of these guys and girls as well that have got the most incredible bodies that you've ever seen. And I'm talking from a society's point of view. Society's got this kind of model of what beauty and health is.
Absolutely.
Very insecure people.
Yeah.
Very lost. They've got lots of shit they're going. And I'm like, wow, actually, they've got more stuff. They've got the body, but they've got more stuff than people that haven't really got the body. And does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
of course.
For me, I'm all about yes, and I actually love going to the gym. I love looking good, and I love all those things. But actually, it's more inside. It's how do you truly feel inside when you're by yourself, when you're on your own? And so I think it's a really good point to do these things from a place of not just because everyone else is doing them, or it's a new diet that can help you lose weight. But is that really what your essence or your spirit is wanting you to do?
Exactly.
That to me would be really intuitive.
Yeah, that is, and that's the ethos of the whole thing. Really, is where is it coming from? What's the what's that place?
I love that. Where is it coming from?
Yeah. Where's your intention?
Yeah. Okay, so then coming back to your story.
Yeah.
Yeah. You realised you had some kind of eating disorders. You were restricting yourself.
Yeah.
But you've kind of jumped to Thailand. And
So
which is amazing. How did all that happen? Yeah.
Coming to Thailand?
Yeah, you saw a therapist, and you kind of that obviously started your journey. But there must have been some kind of, let's use the word, kind of restrictions, or people kind of do you really want to go to Thailand, or even your own voice, or was it I'm just going to go and do my eat, love, pray, and then we'll.
Well, yeah, I think one of the reasons that I got divorced in the first place is that I broke up from my ex-husband was because I had always had a dream to live abroad, work abroad, live a life of traveling. And I felt like that wasn't necessarily what he wanted. So we parted ways, and it was very sad, and it was very emotional, and it took me a long time to actually recover from that.
And a lot of biscuits.
Yeah, actually no, the opposite.
Oh, you went the opposite.
Yeah,
okay.
Because that's how my eating disorder was. Is that I would just restrict myself from eating things. So yeah, and so that kind of began that opportunity for me then to actually live my dream. And so first of all, I was I just want to go and travel for a year. I don't want to have to go anywhere, be anywhere. I just want to have that freedom. And so that's when I did my Eat, Pray, Love year. And then the opportunity I was in Singapore, the opportunity to volunteer at an international school came up there, and I thought I'll go and just see what it's like. I just contacted the principal on LinkedIn, and they said, yeah, come in. And I saw what amazing opportunities international schools have. I mean, it's a completely different world to what you get in state schools in the UK. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to work in an international school. So I went back to the UK. I worked for a bit in London and then got a job. While I was working in London, I got offered a job in Bangkok. So that's how I managed to move here. And I never found it found me.
Yeah.
I never thought I want to live in Thailand. I never thought Bangkok, yes, that's the place I want to go.
Yeah.
But
Do you ever
that's
think
where
you'd be
the
living
job
in Copenhagen
was.
now, barefoot doing a podcast?
No, not at all. It was. I mean, I've always loved the freedom that comes along with the beach life. You know, when I was younger, we'd go off on holidays and things like that to like the Algarve and places. You know, and I'd always just feel
Tenerife,
so amazing. Yeah. Afterwards, and you know, summertime is my time, and yeah, I just think that I can be so truly connected to who I really am in my heart and in my body and my soul, like in this type of environment.
Yeah.
But I also love going back to the UK and seeing my family, and I think that's actually the real test of what you've actually learned as a, you know, on this personal growth journey that we're all on here. And you know, being able to kind of like use those strategies that you've learned, you know, and keeping on that pathway even when your environment around you is not necessarily this idyllic, is the real test.
All right. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
But I always say that to the students on the course. It's like meditation begins when your eyes are open. Like when your eyes are closed, that's for you to, like you say, look at whatever's going on. Do you feel sad? Are you lonely? Are you angry? Are you overeating? Are you taking drugs? Like that to me is like self-awareness, self-inquiry.
Exactly.
But really it begins when your eyes are open, when, you know, when somebody's triggering you, or you go back and live with your parents, or there's a bar of chocolate staring you at the face saying, Brett, eat me. It's like, you know, how do you show up then, you know, in life? Because anybody could go and sit on a beach or in a cave and just close your eyes and just escape reality. But I actually think it's when your eyes are open and how you are, you know, how you treat people and animals and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just so there's a lot of people that I get a lot of messages from people. I just literally got a message from a couple of people this week on Instagram, and almost instantly now I've so fine-tuned it because I know of how the ego operates with myself. I know I'm deluded. I know we tell ourselves a load of lies, and there's loads of hidden unconscious stories that are looping around. And I'm okay with that. It's actually set me free to realize that this is mental. So when other people kind of tell me their stories or they're kind of like giving me their excuses, I'm like, and again, there's no judgment whatsoever. But what I'm trying to say is that we limit ourselves.
Yeah.
Or we tell ourselves a story which kind of doesn't create freedom in life. So you've obviously framed it and told yourself some stories to create this level of freedom, like I have, and Antonio and everyone else that lives in Copenhagen. But you had to break up with your husband, or you had to kind of leave and take a leap of faith and move to Thailand. You even went back to the UK. Was there any point, you know, where you felt like you doubted yourself for doing this? Because breaking up with someone that you love is hardcore.
Yeah.
Leaving the UK isn't as easy as most people think it is. But you did it and you carried on, and it really paid off.
Yeah.
But there must have been some times, because there's a lot of people at home that say they're sending me messages, it's all right for you, you know, you're lucky. And I'm like, there's no luck involved in this. I had to make a lot of choices and I had to take a lot of action.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you did, and everyone else on our podcast.
Yeah.
Can you talk me through that process? Did you doubt yourself? Did you almost not do it? Or did you just think, go for it?
Yeah, I think there's definitely times when I've doubted myself. Mainly, it's actually been more recently as I've kind of transitioned out of like having a job to being, you know, just having my own business and just going into that fully. But I guess like right back in the beginning when I got the job in Bangkok, it just all kind of flowed into place. And I'm very much a believer of, you know, the universal like wisdom, guidance, divine, you know, power, whatever you want to call it. It provides opportunities to you in your life which you can choose to take or not. And when things flow and happen easily, in my opinion, that is a sign that this is the right thing. And I've always felt very supported by my family. You know, they miss me, obviously, and I miss them, but they've never once like held me back or made me feel guilty about wanting to chase my dreams. And so I've always felt, I think when you have that like foundation of support and unconditional love from your family and friends, you can kind of do anything and know that if it doesn't work out, you've got somewhere else to go. And I'm very fortunate to have that knowledge. I know not everybody does.
Yeah, I was about to say that. What if you haven't got that? Like,
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that haven't got that, right?
Yeah.
They still have to have the mindset.
Yeah.
Because again, I think what I love more than anything is that you never had a clue how great it would work out, but you just had to take that first step.
Yeah, you do.
So would you sort of say, even if you haven't got that family, if you don't have that support, but you have some kind of calling, or you kind of have an idea that you want freedom, just go for it? Or?
Yeah, trust yourself. You know, if you've got this like nagging feeling in your mind or in your body that has always been there, which is what I had, then eventually it gets louder and louder and louder, and you can't deny it. And then you can make a choice whether you trust that or not. And if you do, it can take you on an amazing journey. And I always tell myself, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? Is that it doesn't work out. So if it doesn't work out, something else will come along. And you know, having that faith in yourself, and it's hard. Like you do have times when you feel like, am I doing the right thing? You know, you question everything. And yeah, I mean, I've had many times like that, but I always just come back to like, what is it that I really want from my life? Like, what do I feel like my purpose is? And it's a journey, like, and you never grow as a person if you stay in the same situation in your life all the time. The only time you really grow and develop and learn about yourself and others is when you step outside of that comfort zone. And it's the most amazing journey, and it can take you on this completely unknown, you know, adventure. Yeah, exactly. And so why not do that? Like, why be safe? Why stay in like this little bubble of security, which is really like the ego mind is like attached to that. You know, that's what we want.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. It is like creating a prison, and there's so much like out there. There's so much like love and excitement and, you know, opportunity to be had. And if you don't take it, somebody else will.
Yeah.
And you can create your own reality. You know, I read one of the things that actually really helped me was a book that I read called Manifest by Roxy Nafusi. And she talks about the 7 stages of manifestation. And one of the stages is like trusting that everything is going to like happen in the right way, and having faith in the universe and the energy and all that. And so I think to keep that with you at all times is essential. And you always meet amazing people along the way that help you and inspire you, and they lift you up. And that's how you know, like all these tiny little signals of just like little things going, oh yeah, okay. And then somebody helps you out one day, and then you meet this amazing person. They go, oh yeah, I'm going to put you in touch with him. And these things just flow into place. And that's how you know, I'm giving myself goosebumps as well. That's how you know you're on the right path. And the more you do it, the more you can trust yourself and you can trust the process.
Thanks so much for watching our videos and being part of the tribe. We're really here to raise consciousness, ignite your vibration, and help you master this monkey mind. And did you know that science has proven over and over again that one of the fastest ways to reprogram your mind is through positive affirmations and things like these Bodhi beads. They're a set of 108 mala beads that go round in a ring like this, and you practice positive affirmations to reprogram your brain. Science has also proven in a 30-day study that if you say the same affirmation and use a set of beads, then you can literally neurologically change the pathways in your brain. Now that means any of those limiting beliefs that you've got around money, around love, around health, you can change them if you repeat a certain affirmation that I am wealthy, I am loved, I am healthy. And that's why we've created a set of 8 powerful meditations where you do one meditation every day with me personally for 30 days. And you use your beads in your hand, and each time you use the affirmation, you roll your thumb and your finger around on these beads. These meditations are videoed, or you can download the MP3s, put them on your phone, and literally go to bed at night time rolling your Bodhi beads. These Bodhi beads are handmade with love in Thailand by a local family. We ship them free to anywhere in the world, and plus we donate 10% of all of our profits to an elephant sanctuary here in Thailand. So click the link below, make sure you sign up right now, because we're actually going to give you a 20% discount code. All you need to do is when you go to the checkout is type in I love Bodhi, and that will give you a 20% discount on your first purchase of Bodhi beads. Have an amazing day. Now you can get back to the video. See you soon. I think that's what it's the big thing I'm really getting from you, whether it's the intuitive eating coaching, the nutrition, or even taking a leap of faith and following your dreams is trust and really connecting.
Yeah.
You know,
Really
we had
is.
Cody, my mate Cody, on here. I think I've mentioned this quote a few times, but he just said something so beautiful. He just said, the universe loves you. And I was just like, wow, he's so right. And that voice in the head, whatever it is, wherever it's come from, his programming seems to kind of sometimes forget that and be critical, whether it's the food police, whether it's something else. So if anybody is listening and they're really not actually in the moment of this manifestation, this flowing way that we really are trying to share, and you're right at the beginning, I think the other way that it would show itself is that you feel really shitty and depressed and stuck in life.
Yeah.
And to me, that was my wake-up call. You know, it wasn't flowy, it wasn't this, it wasn't like this manifestation. I didn't even know what that word meant.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, oh my God, I'm stuck in a prison, literally in a prison cell. I hate myself. There has to be another way.
Yeah.
And my only advice is if that is what anyone's going through, like use that as actually your teacher. Like that's going to show you, and then you'll get to where you're talking about or where I'm talking about now. Like it does flow, it does get easier. Okay, cool. I'm so grateful that you're sharing this. Awareness is like probably one of the best topics of my life because you know, without awareness, it controls you, whatever it is. Food, addiction, gambling, drugs. But with awareness, you've got an opportunity to start changing it. And you can start looking at yourself and changing those habits, right? So for me, it was just so much awareness about food. And never in a million years did I think I'd be somebody that felt lonely and just emotionally eating. So I'm so grateful for you. And you gave me some great tips. Like really practical things, and you just said it so simple. What would you say to somebody at home right now to begin their intuitive eating journey, or even just, you know, creating that level of awareness, maybe around food, but also around sort of like, you know, their health and their nutrition?
Yeah, so I think one of the really good tools is just to build awareness is journaling. So whether that's specifically journaling about your relationship with food, or whether that's just general journaling is just a good place to start. Also, after you've eaten a meal, like journal about how your body feels, how like emotionally and physically, and that will just help you to start building that awareness. There's also things like mindful eating practices, which you can start to do, which is actually a really simple thing. It's quite hard to sort of set yourself up when you've never done it before, because you need to have no distractions. So the mobile phone goes away, no TV, you know, you could maybe have some like relaxing music on or something, but being like really fully present with your eating experience. So holding the food, looking at it, texture, depending on what it is, obviously. If it's like spaghetti bolognese, you're not going to do that. But
great for your fingers.
You know, but you can look through, you know, you can look at it and be really present with it. And then when you put it into your mouth, you know, like noticing the sensations in your body, like how does it taste, the texture, what is it about it that you like? And over time, you know, doing that maybe once a week. It doesn't even have to be, you know, every day. And it can't be every day. It's impractical. But, you know, have one meal a week where you sit down with yourself, with the food, and you just really have that experience. And chewing 20 times as well really helps you to kind of like notice like the movements of your tongue, like how the food changes as you chew it, and then, you know, what happens when you swallow it, how does it feel in your body.
So meditation. This is mindfulness, right?
Yeah, mindful
meditation.
eating. Yeah, exactly.
I was with a friend yesterday, and they was just on their we was eating, and they was on their mobile phone on Instagram texting and eating their food like that. And I just love observing people, you know. And I'm just like, wow, it's like, are you really tasting that and feeling it? And the food's done, then you eat some chocolate, and that's
when you get into the situation where you end up mindlessly eating, and you don't notice like how much you're consuming, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, feel horrible, you know. So like if you're really present with the food, you're much more likely to eat to fullness and then stop. Because, you know, when you chew your food slowly and then you're eating more slowly, you're going to notice the fullness signal in the brain, because it can take around about 10 minutes to happen.
To know when you're
full. To know when you're full, So, and if we eat really quickly, then we've eaten like a whole plate of pasta or something, and then 10 minutes later we feel like really overfull. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's not a nice place to be. So, you know,
eat so quick, and then I just keep on eating. Yeah. Mine's the opposite. I could just keep on going.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Fast eating is one of the things that I help people to do, to change, slow down. Yeah.
I love I think it's Sadhguru. He says something called, one of these kind of Indian guru dudes.
He's amazing.
He's great, right? And he says something like, you know, most people are eating to feed their senses.
Yeah.
but eat food to feed your spirit, your soul.
Okay.
And that kind of was where the veganism completely connected with me. It was because it's like, my soul knows I can't even kill a mosquito.
No,
like,
I know.
I can't kill bugs, you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
why would I want to kill like another living being that's got a
Yeah.
family and a daughter or a mum?
Yeah,
you know? So when
yeah.
I was like, wow, the food that I'm eating, I suppose it's the same with entertainment. You know, what movies are you watching?
Yeah.
Like violent, sexual, angry films, or loving, motivational, inspirational documentaries or something.
Exactly.
So I feel like that kind of is the whole way the system is kind of so brainwashed us to just like, we're so sensitized, right, or desensitized, and that we're just, you know, we're just feeding these senses. We're constantly feeding these senses.
Yeah.
But what I feel like I'm getting from you is slow down.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
feel the hunger, taste the food, like, and then I think then more awareness will come through. Oh, actually, I don't want to eat this meat, or I don't want to eat these curries, or I don't want to eat this chocolate every day. I want to just maybe take a break from it.
Yeah.
Because if you're just so caught up in that, going 100 miles an hour, feeding the senses, you don't have that window of opportunity, that awareness to make a change.
Exactly. And also, you know, a lot of us live in the flight or fight response. You know, we're in this state of like stress all the time, and you know that causes hormonal changes in the body. Higher cortisol creates like cravings for sugar as well. And so if you're in a chronic state of stress all the time, you're much more likely to crave like high calorie foods, like, you know, crisps and chocolate and things like that. And it's also, if you combine that with the emotional eating as well, you know, to kind of cope, then you've got this kind of perfect storm of just like continually choosing these like ultra processed and sort of highly calorific foods, which are not actually very nutritious. You know, they give you energy, they give you fat, which, you know, are valid nutrients, but there's a lot of other nutrients that are lacking in the diet then. And so then you get into a case of a deficiency. But, you know, I think when you say the word deficiency, you quite often might think of somebody who's very lacking in, you know, a very thin first person, or somebody who's, you know, suffering with like a vitamin C deficiency or something like that. But actually, obesity, people who suffer with obesity can be deficient in nutrients. Yeah. So deficiency doesn't just mean like a lack of, you know, a lack of energy. It can be a lack of any of the nutrients really.
That we need, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Sammy, amazing. I think I could just talk to you forever about this stuff. And
we could, yeah. I would love to talk forever about it.
Yeah. And every time you talk, I've got like 5 questions I want to ask, and I'm trying to find the best one just to get it. And again, really, the podcast is having a conscious conversation with somebody, just so anybody that's listening at home, so that they can maybe, you know, make some new choices in life, create more freedom, whether it's around food, around loving their body, or traveling around the world and living their best life, you know. So so grateful. Where can people find out more about you? If you've got Instagram, website, you know, and I don't know whether this is just a me thing, but I think years ago, the old Brett would think somebody with an eating disorder might be more of a woman, if I'm honest. That sounds a bit, you know, it's kind of like not what I think men would talk about.
I don't think that's just you.
It's not just me. Okay, right. I don't want to be kind of like one of these mouse chauvinist kind of pig, kind of like a geezer, because I've kind of come so far away from
that's
that.
a society thing,
Yeah, society
but
thing.
Awareness is increasing, actually.
Yeah, but
men.
what I've noticed more is I've got a lot of guy friends, this is why I'm saying it, that are struggling with food, body image, mental health, just as much as, I don't think it matters whether you're a man or a woman. It's more of an internal thing that we're all going through together.
Absolutely.
So as a man, you know, really good looking man as well, I must say, I felt very lonely without even realizing, and at nighttime doing things that I never had a clue were to do, why I was eating food, basically.
Yeah.
So if you are a guy or a woman watching this, like I would love them to get in contact with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a chat, you know, or ask some information, because you generally, truly helped me. And I know the journey's still, you know, we're still on a journey together. But I'm so grateful for that, because I was, you know, thinking I had to fast every morning and do the whole yogi thing so I could kind of like get fit. But because I wasn't having something like peanut butter or a bit of protein or a bit of nutrition or sugar or energy in the morning, at nighttime I was just pigging out, and it made me feel so horrible and crap. So I know exactly how people feel, or, you know, if they're just eating crap and they don't want to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
It's tormenting yourself.
It really
it's
is. Yeah,
head,
and it's not your fault. You know, this idea of like fasting in the morning, it does suit some people.
Yeah.
But for others, it can create this like over hunger later on in the day.
Me, 100%.
Which then leads to binging, because you've kind of restricted in the morning. And that's what restricting food really does. And anybody that's ever been on a diet, which is probably most people listening to this right now, you know that you go through this period of maybe a few weeks where you can stick to the diet and you're really like good. And you're like, yes, I'm smashing it. And then something will happen, you know, you have a bad day at work, or you go to a party and you're like, there's a cake, and you're like, I'll just have one. I haven't had one for 3 weeks, I'll have one. And then you're like fuck it, I've had one, I may as well have 3.
That's me.
You
That
know,
was me.
and so,
Yeah.
but that is actually your hormones are actually driving that in your body. That isn't actually your willpower. It's nothing to do with the quality of the person you
bad
are.
with you, yeah.
It's just because your body is then like, you know, it's had this period of restriction. So then it's like programming you, and it's driving you to eat, to sort of replace what you've kind of restricted and lost in that period.
But if you don't know that, like I didn't know, wow, until
Exactly,
you told me,
yeah.
Brett, just change this. It was so simple, peanut butter. I can't get over how simple it was, right?
And peanut butter, I love
I've said
it.
it a few times. But if you don't know that, then
Yeah.
the voice in your head, for me,
Yeah.
was critical
There's something
and
wrong
was
with you.
beating me up.
Yeah.
Why can't you get this food thing? And it felt more something internally needed to make that change. And again, I've not sussed it. I'm still on the journey just like everybody else.
Yeah,
but
of course.
if there is men out there listening and they're kind of worried about their food and they've
Yeah.
never spoke to somebody, I want them to talk to you.
Yeah.
And obviously if there's any women with eating disorders, just as much. So where can they find out your information, mate? What can they do?
Yeah,
to get in contact?
so on my Instagram, which is at intuitive.nutrition_whole my website, which is wholesomesoul.co.uk, and I'm on Facebook as well, which is Wholesome Soul.
Wholesome Soul, I love it.
Wholesome Soul.
It is-
Yeah,
that's perfect.
that name came to me on this island like a couple
Yeah.
of years ago. So
That is the magic of
Yeah.
Koh Phangan,
Yeah.
right? Just you get so many opportunities or ideas come to your
you
mind when you
do.
meet the right people.
yeah, it's a
I
very
love it.
inspiring place. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Sammy, thank you so much.
My
so
absolute
grateful.
pleasure. Thank you.
Should we go for a curry?
Let's do it. No white rice though.
No, all right. Thank you, Sammy.
My pleasure.
Love you loads.
Yeah, thank you. Love you too.
Hello viewers, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm hoping that you enjoyed it just as much as we enjoyed making it. We love this adventure we're on, we love growing this community, and we would love you to actually help us. So I've got a favor to ask you. Make sure that you subscribe below, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and turn that notification button on, because that actually helps us with the algorithm. In other words, it's gonna help us reach more people and spread this ripple effect. And I really appreciate your time and energy for watching any video. So if you've got any comments or questions or queries, make sure you pop them in the box below. By subscribing, you're going to be one of the first people to know when we release new content. If you really want to take your journey and your growth to the next level, make sure you watch this next video and have an amazing day. Once again, thank you so much for your time and your energy. See you in the next video.